Hey, this is the Entertainment Advice channel. What I want to talk about is Charli XCX's album Brat. And what I want to talk about, is it overrated or is it perfectly rated? So now that I mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the topic of is her album overrated or perfectly rated, my simple answer to that question is I believe it's overrated. Now, the reason why I say that for her album, is that there's nothing about her music when you listen to it, even though it sounds very distinct and different from what you hear, that makes it have a sound that's likable to a mass audience of people. Okay, because obviously she's a big name person who is, of course, has shown that she wants to be mainstream and so on and so forth, particularly with some of the artists she's made collaborations with and so on and so forth in the past. She obviously is someone who wants to be mainstream, so you can't use that argument, oh, it's for a niche audience or something. No, she clearly wants to be mainstream, and when you listen to her music, even though she has obviously a specific niche audience in this case for that matter, you just cannot hear anything that makes it likable for a more casual listener for that matter. Okay, whether it could be adding instruments we're familiar with, such as a flute, or it could be adding instruments we're also familiar with, like a trumpet. None of that stuff is really added to her music that makes it sound likable to a mass audience of people. And obviously the majority of us who obviously listen to her music, since it was hyped up so much it's not even funny, are obviously heteros, are two audiences that are obviously not the audiences she's intending for, whether it could be gay males or young troubled adolescent females. So obviously if you're not one of those two main particular audiences, and you're not just very familiar as well with that style of music, then obviously you're going to have a lot of problems enjoying the album. So when it comes to for the specific niche, I guess it's good, but this is the modern world. We're talking about big numbers here, okay? And when it comes to big numbers, I don't see anything, when it comes to a mainstream audience that I truly feel can make this go like, okay, this is a massive banger album for anyone out there, okay? And that's what I'm trying to say about this album. I'm not trying to be mean or something, like she's made good songs before, I'm certain, and she had some pretty good collabs with people before, but when it comes to her music itself, in this case for this album, it's just not really that great, in all honesty. And obviously she wants to be mainstream, so you can't make the argument, oh, she doesn't want to go too big or this and that. But when it's clearly obvious as day, yes, she wants to be mainstream. So the truth of the matter is her new album, I should say, Brat, is just not that great. I don't find anything amazing about it. I don't find anything different about it. It's the same old. That amazing about it, we're not different. It sounds different, to be fair, from what you hear. But if you listen to early 2010s electronic music, it wouldn't have stood out that much at all, for that matter. But anyway, the main point of the matter is it just sounds too different. It doesn't have anything that gives it a basic commonality with the music you hear on the radio and stuff, Yeah, and I know she obviously wants to be different with this album. You can clearly tell she's being a bit different. But even if you're being a bit different, for that matter, you still want to have some basic sounds that everyone can kind of say that, okay, I like this particular sound, whatever's in at this particular period of time. So that's exactly the problem with her album. Her album just doesn't have that. It doesn't have that. It's definitely not the greatest album, for that matter, to put it bluntly, to be honest with you. I just don't find anything about it likable or anything that is that great, and especially for someone who's not necessarily for the specific demographic, I just don't find anything that likable about it, in all honesty, unless you're really into that music. So anyway, that's what I have to say about her album. Now let's get to the second point, of course, I want to discuss for this particular video. And the second point just really consists of simply the simple fact of the matter that when you are trying to be different and you are trying to do something that goes against the grain, which I understand that obviously a lot of people are doing nowadays because all the music on the radio tends to sound exactly the same. The truth of the matter is, you still want to have some degree, in all honesty, for that matter, of a common sound, okay? Something that people can say, okay, I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that. You know, what you've become too familiar with in music, okay? Okay, just like for the early 2010s, you would have heard, of course, a lot of trumpet sounds, and not just trumpet sounds, but played in a specific type of way for that matter, okay? Or in the early 2010s, you would have heard a lot of boom, 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 you know, which even though there's a specific song that has that particular sound that sounds like the way I said it, you get the point. Like there's a certain particular type of sound you kind of want to go with and stick with, if anything, for that matter, okay? And none of her music really had anything that made it really stand out in terms of, or I should say, really fit into that. You know, it didn't have anything that has a common sound, or at least just a sound that everyone can kind of say that they like. The melodies weren't for it weren't really that great. It just had a very electronic sound. It didn't have anything that made it stand out. So this should be a lesson to people. If you want to make music, especially if you want to be different, you still have to have some basic degree of similarities to what is obviously the sound that people like, okay? Especially the sound at the time. But aside from that, when it comes to this, she's a good artist. I just don't think this song was, her music for this album was truly meant for, of course, you know, for mass consumption. If she were to do it like independently or something, I guess it would be good. But she was kind of more focused on going mainstream. So if she's going mainstream, for that matter, what's really the point of making an album that sounds so different, and it's just kind of hard to stick with? So that's my personal thoughts on this album. You know, she's a talented musician, but this album, not really that great. So anyway, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video and videos like this, remember to thumbs this video up and the subscribe button. And this is all I have to say, and simply put, I'm out. So bye.